before we start with it, let me just give you a quick background on how LegalWise was created. Now, plus minus around 35 years ago, similar to that of a rock band, it was created in a garage. Now, our founder, Zach Crawford, was actually at the time working for Legal Aid. Now, he was assisting a client, and the client came back, and he was so satisfied, he gave him a 10 rand in an envelope. And he asked Zach, please continue to provide me with legal assistance every month, and I will continue to provide you with 10 rand every month. Now, you guys know it's basically bribe money, so you can't take any money. But that planted the seed in Zach's head, saying that there's a deep need in our society for legal protection. Now, I don't know how many of you have actually had to deal with private attorneys who have been involved in cases, but private attorneys cost a lot of money. Let me give you an example. While I was still practicing, my consultation fee for you would be 800 rand for half an hour. Then I haven't done anything. I've listened to your problem. You see where the problem comes in. Now, again, so I decide, okay, I'll probably be able to win it. What a lot of attorneys do is, they know for a fact that they will not be able to assist you, but they need money. They have to now make deadlines for their directors. So, I'm charging you another 5,000 to 10,000 rand deposit. Why? So that I can now draft a summons for you, so that I can go to court. So don't think that's where it stops. Now again, I will demand money from you when I get to court. And I will tell you, okay, now if it's up to here, but now I need another 5,000 deposit, because now we're going on trial. If you don't pay me that 5,000 rand, I'm not going to show up at court. It's how it works. It's not me that's being funny with it. That is how private attorneys work. Unfortunately, if you cannot pay, you cannot do it. Now, that's where LegalWise comes in. So, what happens is, if you don't have an attorney in court, the chances of you winning your case, I promise you they are very slim. And most of the time, the other party does have an attorney. And then you have problems. So, the seed was planted. Why not create a legal insurance company that now can actually level the playing field? Why? Because now you don't have to fork out thousands of rands for a private attorney. You pay a monthly installment and you get the necessary legal protection every month. And of course, that is how LegalWise was born, for assisting people who decided, I'm not going to pay private attorney so that he can just now fork out thousands of rands every month. Rather pay an amount every month and ensure that you are protected any time that you need legal protection. Now, I have attended a lot of these presentations, seminars, workshops, and I can promise you I've fallen asleep during nearly half of them. Why? The presenter is standing in front. He's showing you slides. He's talking. My brain is overloading. I cannot focus that long. I know you guys are teachers and principals. You guys can focus for much longer than I can. But the normal person can only focus for that long. Then I lose interest. I've even started sleeping in the church sometime. My wife was very angry at me. So what I'm going to do today is, I'm going to give you a brief overview of the rights mentioned in the booklet, because they are applicable to you guys. But then I'm also going to let us do a few practical activities. That's why I want you to have the books and the pens. You can divide into groups, you can discuss it with each other. The thing is, I need participation. I need to know how you guys think how you must handle it, and then we can discuss the correct way forward as well. Will that be fine with you? Okay. What we will first look at is the introduction to our law. Now that's in booklet 1. It mentions about the Constitution. It mentions your rights and responsibilities, especially with children. Children have the right to be cared for. Children have the right to free basic education for it. They need not to be neglected, abused, or degraded. Human rights, extremely important in your profession. Children being treated differently because of their race, because of their religion. Now, I don't know how many of you have seen that article. The lady had an afro. The school said, I think it was in Pretoria, the school said, no, unfortunately, your hair, it's not according to our school policy. You cannot come to school with it. What did you think about that? Tell me, what did you think about that? Of course not. It's actually outrageous. So, at the end of the day, guys, what you must focus on, adjust your school policies. We're not living 20 or 30 years ago. What we are now trying to do is, yes, you have a beautiful afro. Does it look neat? Are you clean? I understand now with the girls, with their skirts and everything. That I understand completely. You cannot wear a skirt there. That I understand completely. But for your school, for your afro, if it looks neat, if it looks tidy, then it's fine. The problem is there is currently no legislation still in place for that. Yes, you're going to get very bad media attention on it. Yes, people will read about it in the school. They will actually now start again. They would want to demand to speak to the principal. They're going to make problems for you on it. See to it that your school policy is adjusted accordingly so that it can actually make provision for both all races, and force also do not discriminate in any way. Discrimination is only fair when you can justify it. Now tell me, how can you justify a person wearing an afro to a person wearing long hair in a bola? You cannot. There's no chance of it. Your constitutional right, let me just follow up on that. Right to human dignity, to equality, and to freedom. Your dignity is impaired if somebody tells you that your hair is not correct to be in the school. It's not how it works in South Africa, not any longer. Equality. Everybody needs to be treated equally. Freedom. Freedom of speech. We'll get to that as well. It's a very interesting topic I have for that. There are certain limitations to your freedom of speech, of course, but we will get to that later on. This is a case law that I want you guys to do. I'll read the facts, but don't now just focus on the facts for me. Let me quickly just tell you what's it about. So, based on this, there was one religion in a public school. So they had a Christian religion. The school said, okay, every hour or so, we'll take everybody and we'll go and pray. Now everybody was forced to attend this meeting where everybody prayed for it. Now for some people, excellent. But what about the people who is not Christian? Are you not now taking away their freedom, their right to actually say no? Now you're forcing them into something. Do you guys think that's correct? So what will you as the school do? Will you now tell these people, well, sorry for you guys, this is how our school operates, because 75% of the people sitting here are Christian. So the 25% will now have to come with you. You're going to have to sit there and just keep quiet. And when we pray, you're actually going to have to also close your eyes and just wait until we're done. What do you guys think must happen? So, that's the problem with it. So, again, it goes to school policies. I cannot stress enough how important school policies are. Let me show you what the facts were.
Reinhard, there's a hand
Yeah.
I wanted to change. I can hear we are touching the issue of school police, Here is the situation now. I've admitted a learner, and that learner, according to our school policy, yes, we are focusing on the Christianity, but the learner now is not part of that. But still, he is the learner at our school. In terms of that, yes, now we have a conflict. How well can you solve?
Let me quickly finish the case and I'll tell you.
Same apply to that here thing. Yeah, because I think it's also a challenge.
It's of course a challenge.
The police is there, but still this learner is coming with the same afro head.
Understand that.
You see, my main worry is that we'll end up having thousands and thousands of policies. Some of these policies are unnecessary, like the hair. Have got nothing to do with teaching and learning. It does not have to disrupt teaching and learning.
Exactly.
So why do we have to bother ourselves developing hair policy, attire policy, shoe policy? Guys, come on.
I feel your pain. I've been feeling your pain for the past 3 years on that.
Yes, everything is around it. The attire policy.
Exactly. Remember, clients, parents love to complain. They do. You know this. Parents love to complain. The moment their child is not doing well in school, they're going to look for reasons why. They're going to say, yes, it's because my child is being discriminated in school because of a hair policy. The thing is that I want you guys to know is you'll have to cover yourself. It's as simple as that. What I would always suggest, do not do anything verbally, do it in writing. Why? Because you're covering yourself in a letter where you are actually telling them exactly, this is unfortunately the policy. Again, remember, the wording must be reasonable. No unfair discrimination on it. Ensure that it is delivered to the person. If possible, call the person in, let him sign it. If he doesn't want to sign it, get a witness there with you. And then at least then the witness can also say, yes, I was there, but don't get your best friend now to be there. Get somebody there who can just testify that yes, it was explained to them what was in the letter, and still he did not want to listen, he did not want to sign. Then your side is at least clear. But let me make this clear. I don't have a solution for you where you will no longer have any problems. You will always have problems as teachers in the school. I'm just trying to get better cover for you guys in the matter. I will come back to that question now. Let's quickly just look at the facts on this one. So, the organization applied to the High Court to prevent public schools from advertising that they are exclusively founded in one religion. So this was now advertised in papers as well. Basis of the application. One religion is favored in public schools, and this is biased as in contravention of the Constitution. The Constitution says, right of freedom. Your freedom cannot be impaired to now be forced to only take on one religion. Organization argued that if a school only identifies with one religion, it will not be able to fairly address any other religion. This conduct will be unconstitutional. The editor was already for you. It is unconstitutional. I understand what you're saying, it's one learner now. But that one learner can cause a problem for the school. It is unconstitutional. Defense based on the Schools Act allows a school to determine its character according to the religions followed in its community. This is usually determined by the rules set out in the school's governing body. Now again, it's applicable on yours. So it says there, defense based on the Schools Act allows a school to determine its character according to the religions followed in its community. Now I'm going to assume the community around your school is mostly Christian on it. Is that correct? That's why the school now adopted that policy for it. The High Court looked at the right to religious freedom that also allows state-aided institutions to allow religious observances provided that the appropriate rules are followed. They are reasonably and equally conducted And participation is free and voluntarily. You cannot force a child. Again, that's where it comes down to. You cannot now force a child saying, because you're the only person there, you will have to attend. What else am I going to do with you? So let me tell you what we did at our school. We also held religious morning prayers. The people who did not want to attend, we made available a separate classroom. We got one teacher to supervise them, and they can keep themselves busy during that time. Then you cover yourself. But once again, do not just say that. Get it in writing, my friends. Send it to the parents if they have a problem with it. I'm not saying send it to all of the parents, but once somebody complains or once a child comes to you and saying, listen, well, I'm not Christian, why must I be here? Ensure that there is an alternative for you. Get a classroom, get a teacher. If the teacher really wants to be there, and I understand why, I mean, he does help you for the day, then just get another teacher there and then swap them every time the child now does not want to. But there are always ways around it. The problem comes in when you tell the child you cannot do it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, because it is a challenge now. It's not one day. See, now the trend. Now you will have half of the school.
You're
now,
setting an example.
Now,
I understand that.
Yeah, now
I
they are no
understand
longer
that.
Christians now. So
I understand that. But guys, also take this into consideration. That one person now you get that difficult person. What do they do now usually? They run to the media. They just tell them, this school is discriminating against me. I promise you, it doesn't have to be 3 or 4 or 5. You're telling no, yes, it has a snowball effect. And most probably yes. But at least you can then say, well, I did not take away his freedom of actually having to be there. I gave him an alternative. And now whether or not he wants to take it, that's on him. But then the school's name is clear. What do we want? We want the school not to get a bad reputation on this. So the conclusion from the court. The High Court held that public schools as state institutions cannot promote single religions to the exclusion of others. Legislation must be put in place to establish to what extent a public school can permit religious observances. The High Court could not make such a decision. Why can the High Court not make such? Because there's no legislation in place. So, we're going to have to wait. I promise you legislation. Have you heard of the paternity leave coming in now? Aren't you glad about it, guys? It's like 10 days for fathers. You know what the worst part is? It's still not applicable to us. You think it is? You would be surprised, a lot of HR friends of mine, they think it's already in place. They're putting it in their policies. It's not yet in place. That's the problem. Legislation takes very, very long to come in, especially with something like this. But the more and more it is in the public's interest, the more quicker legislation will be drafted to deal better with this. But this is, for now, the best answer I can give you on that. Even if you don't like it.
yeah, because it is against also the school act. Because the school act, it says the SGP can come up with that policy. Now the policy is still not covered through legislation. So
I understand. I understand.
The SGP can be taken to court.
Yes.
With regard to that.
They can.
And that cannot be used to prevent learners from being admitted to a public school.
The most important thing in South Africa is our constitution. If you are against our constitution, it doesn't matter who you are wrong.
Yeah.
You are wrong. It's as simple as that. Okay, how many of you are familiar with all the courts in South Africa? We have a lot of courts. I'm just going to give you the main types of courts. Other special courts. I'll give you a detailed description of it now. The magistrate courts. Oh, I have a laser pointer. High Courts, Supreme Court of Appeal, the Constitutional Court. Okay, Oscar Pistorius' case started in the High Court. Why? Because it was a murder case. That's why it was moved up from the magistrate to the High Court. He didn't like, or the state attorneys didn't like how the matter was handled. It went to the Supreme Court of Appeal. They overturned it and said, no, the judge was wrong, much higher sentence for it. Personally, I agree completely with what was said there. In our booklets you will find this. This just gives you a better understanding of the courts. Now, especially for your school children as well. If they want to join the military, there are certain military courts that they can follow. The specialist courts, Competition Appeal Court, the Labour Court, the Labour Appeal Court, the Electoral Court. These are the courts that you will usually use for civil claims and for criminal claims on it. Now let me just show you something interesting. How many of you are familiar with the Small Claims Court? What do you know about it?
It's useless.
No, it's not useless. Why are you saying it's useless? One petition, one region. Are you staying in Germany?
I stay around Pretoria.
In Pretoria?
Yes.
I'm going to have a talk with them. Because, guys, a lot of people think, so, I owe you 5,000 rand. Okay, how are you going to get it from me? What is your strategy? What are you going to do?
There's two ways, yeah.
Yeah.
Township.
Don't break my legs.
Township.
Don't break my legs. No. What is the legal way that you can get it from me?
You know the reason why. Let me just expand on what I just said. The reason why I say the small claims court is useless right there. It's because I feel the whole criminal justice system in South Africa protects the perpetrator more than the victim. You understand? The people go there and then they say, I don't have money. You know, they just stand boldly there and say, I don't have money, and they owe you 50,000. At times, I think it's limited to 20,000. Yeah. And then
I want to tell you that.
That's right. Yes, yeah. Then after that, then somebody says, no. They say, how much can you pay? Even if they say 10 rand, 50 rand.
No.
Yeah.
No. Then somebody explained it to you wrong. That's why I'm here today, guys. There's a lack of knowledge how a legal system works. Since I started with LegalWise, remember now, so I was now a private attorney. The guy came to me, he wanted 5,000 rand. I'm going to say, excellent. But put down a deposit of 5,000 rand so that I can help you get your 5,000 rand. It's as simple as that. I'm not going to work for free. I'm not going to use the small claims court. What I'm going to do is I'm exactly going to go to the magistrate court on it. Magistrate court can handle matters like that. Why not? Do you know why they don't want to use the small claims court? There's no legal representation involved. So what you do is, you go to court. You don't even have to go to court. You can download the form from the internet, the small claims court form. It's 2 pages. What you do is there, all that you have to know is, you have to know your details. Hopefully all of you know your details. You have to know the defendant's details. Now that's where the problem comes in. A lot of you, so you borrow money to somebody, or they destroy something from you, or what I've had recently is with funerals. So you order tombstones. The tombstones fall after a week or two. The tombstones are crumbling. Quality is very bad. You have no idea what to do with that. So, again, just as long as you don't break his knees, it's fine. So what we must do is then, you come to us, we help you, we assist you to complete the forms. What you can do is then, that's where people complain now. That's what makes a difference from a civil claims court. So I charge you for going to court and having to now put this in front of the magistrate, having to put this in front of the clerk of the court. It's a process to follow. The small claims court, it's much faster, and you don't have to pay any money for that. The only time that you pay money for it is you're going to have to pay a sheriff fee. Now, if you don't know where the person is, there are ways to chase them, guys. We call them traces. I have excellent traces for me. What they need is, I need a cell phone number, I need an ID number, I need a name or a surname. I can get the address where that person is staying. I can even get his workplace address. It's scary if you actually think about it that way, huh? That is what I need. So, the traces work on a no trace, no fee basis. With other words, if they don't find the person, you don't have to pay for them. Now, the lady I work with, she has never failed me in giving me an address for this. You pay her 350 Rand, that's the current fee for it. So, you keep that proof of payment. Then you go back to the court. The court will issue with a summons. You take that, you're all familiar with the sheriff, okay? You take that summons to the sheriff, he serves it on the person, he calls you back. Now that's what we call a return of service. Return of service is a piece of paper and it's indicated the date, the time that the sheriff delivered this summons to this person, and it's also indicated on the summons the date of the court. So, after that, all that you have to do is of course you have to pay now for the sheriff fees as well. So, you keep everything you had to pay, the sheriff fees. You keep, if you have to send the letter of demand, you keep whatever you have for that as well. You say there in your complaint form, the guy owes me 5,000 Rand. Now you've ruined it for me, but you can go up to 20,000 Rand for it. You can claim up to 20,000 Rand for it. That's exceptional. That's a lot of money. So, the day of the summons indicated on the court, you just go there and then you explain yourself to the judge. If the other person is not there and you have the proof of the sheriff saying, okay, but he was supposed to be there, he wasn't there, a default judgment is issued. It's as simple as that. There's nothing now that the court can say, yes, but let us now try to negotiate. Yeah. They had time to negotiate. They had time to come to you and say, let's make a payment arrangement. They weren't even there. Default judgment immediately. What does that mean? What does a judgment mean, guys? You get listed on ITC. What does that mean? If you now go and apply for a home loan, apply for car finance, anything, they'll say, sorry, on our system, on TransUnion, on Experian, you are listed. I did it with a tenant of mine. It worked excellent because the guy couldn't get a loan. It was for 5,000 Rand. Up until that full amount is not paid, the judgment will not be removed from his name. You will get your money back. I've done hundreds of the small claims court, and I promise you, my success rate is like 99%. And it's not me doing it, it's the clients, because they basically do all the work. I'm just guiding you in the right direction. But it's a very effective way to do things. And that's why I also want you to teach your pupils. Do you call them pupils or do we call them learners? That's why I also want you to teach your learners about this, because it is something that they're going to use. Our economy, I'm not even going to mention the economy, but you now guys know what state our economy is. We do not have money for private lawyers. This is a very, very good alternative for everyone. I will use a small claims court. I will not go for a private attorney if it's not above 20,000.
Yeah. But I still maintain that the small claim courts is a futile exercise because of, say for an example, the person who owes you 20,000 Rand, it happens to be the person that has been returned from work. And how do you recover that money? So all the energy, the time has been wasted, you see, in pursuing that person to pay you back. So it's difficult to see. The scenarios are not the same.
I understand that completely, but sir, based on that as well now, let's now say, okay, it's a futile court. Let's go to the magistrate court. Let's even go to the high court with exactly the same matter. But the problem is now, the guy is still not working.
Yes.
So, well,
it's your time. You can do. It's your time. You're
There's
consuming
nothing
your
you
time
can
now
do.
and money to attend the court cases.
That I understand completely. That I understand, and it does happen. I agree with you. And the client is furious. But now again, just based on that logic, so now you paid me 5,000 rand for my services and my deposit to assist you with the magistrate claim, where you just of all could have found out, okay, he doesn't have any money in the small claims court. I'm not going to give your 5,000 back because you came to me so that I can assist you with the magistrate court. You're out 5,000 rand. Perhaps I would have even charged you 10,000 for that. You understand?
Yeah, but there's a solution to that. If they don't have money, don't borrow them.
I just thought your solution was again to break knees,
Yeah.
but just as long as it's not that, then it's fine. So, the magistrate court. It deals with both criminal matters, it deals with both civil matters. If it's serious criminal matters, rape cases, murder cases, it gets shifted up to the High Court. The magistrate for civil claims, it's limited to 200,000 rand. So anything from 0 to 200,000 rand, you can claim from the magistrate court. Then anything between 200,000 and 400,000, you can get at the regional court. Interesting fact as well of our regional courts, because South Africa has so many divorce cases. As I understand, husband and wife cannot stand each other any longer. What now happened was, you could only get divorce in the High Court. But there was such a huge waiting list for it, and the costs were extreme. Thank you. Who said that? Thank you, exactly. The costs are extremely high. So, the regional court has now also made available for us to use them. It's a much quicker process and it's a much less expensive process to follow. Okay. Supreme Court of Appeal, if you're not happy with the High Court's decision, we get a lot of this, we go to the Supreme Court of Appeal. If you're again not happy with them, you can always use the Constitutional Court, but then you'll have to be either a millionaire or a multi-millionaire. Of course, yeah, it's a lot of money. Okay. Just for interest's sake, let's now say that. Before I show you this, otherwise you're going to spoil it for me. Can a person, what is the legal age that a person can draft a will? 18. Most contracts is 18 years, of course, because then you've reached the age of majority. But no, if you are 16 years of age, you can make a will without the assistance of a parent or a legal guardian. If you're 16 years of age, you can open a bank account. Please tell your school children that. It's very necessary, guys. A lot of people come to me, especially the wives. The husband passed away. It's shocking how many people do not have a will. And guys, now for it to be divided, your estate. I don't know how many of you went through it, but it's a horrible process. So many people fight. Family members never even speak to each other again. I've even had one case where the brother and sister, they actually fraudulently drafted a will for their parents for it, and the other sister didn't get anything. It's high court applications. It's fraudulent, but the problem is now, how do you prove that it's fraudulent? They did it so well. It's extremely important. I cannot stress it enough how important it is to draft a will as soon as possible. And what my director always told me with his, while I was an article clerk, article clerks, I'm telling you, we get minimum pay. What I did was I had to drive for him every day. I had to buy his alcohol for him every day. But the one thing that I did see from him is how important it is to draft a will. Every 3 months, he let me draft a will for him. Why? Because of corruption in South Africa. If somebody finds your will, And if somebody manages to actually make your signature on a will that actually now belongs to him, you're going to have huge problems. Not you, you'll be dead. Your family is going to have huge problems in proving what exactly was the valid will. You have to draft one, I would say. Personally, I would say every year, just renew your will. I've had situations where the person drafted a will. His wife divorced him a few years ago, and now he actually has a new girlfriend. They got married. The person passed away. That's great and all, but because his will now still states that his ex-wife is entitled to get something. She got something. And who's going to hear it then?
You mean the girlfriend?
Not even us. They're even going to come to the principals.
As long as
and
it's 3 months in that relationship is also entitled.
No comment. This is very interesting, guys. Between 12 and 15 years, girls. Girls between 12 and 15 years may marry with the consent of the parent, the guardian, and the Minister of Home Affairs. Very important. You cannot now just say it's a valid marriage. The Minister of Home Affairs must give his permission on that. Boys between the age of 14. Guys, calm down, calm down. I still have more for you. I have more for you, I promise. Guys between the age of 14 to 18 years, a minor who gets married becomes a major and keeps that status. So with other words, you have this 15-year-old boy saying, listen, I'm now a man. You're saying, no, man. If he's married, he is a man now. It's very interesting. Some of us didn't even know that. Tell them about that, but please don't encourage them to marry at this age. Please don't encourage them to marry at this age. If you're admitted in a hospital, 12 years or older, medical treatment without consent of a parent or guardian provided, but the doctor must be able to explain what the procedure is, what the complications are, the medication is going to take, and if that child understands what the complications and risks are, the child can sign from the age of 12 and up. What we're going to do from here, you'll see there's criminal responsibility for children. I will discuss this later for us. Minors, 7 to 18 years old, they have limited capacity. Consent or assistance from a parent or guardian to enter into contracts. You have to have your parent with you before you can enter into contracts. No consent assistance needed for HIV testing. To get rights without duties like receiving a donation or to access information on it. One thing that we are all very familiar with in South Africa is protests, strikes. The rights and responsibilities when protesting, but bear in mind, what South Africans do is when we protest, we like to burn things, we like to steal things. Looting occurs a lot, a lot. I've been living in Witbank for like 3 years. I can promise you the Pakistanis and everything, everything's looted. Everything, they take everything. They even take the garage doors. No, it's insane. Again, guys, it's against the Constitution. Why? Your right to dignity, your right to freedom. So, what they also do is, now they force you, you're working in a group. Now they're telling you tomorrow, okay, we're holding a strike. If you are not there, we are going to target you as well. Now you're being intimidated. So what do now? You show up to work because you're a dedicated worker. You're going to get harassed. Perhaps your life is going to be in danger. Again, what is going to happen now if something like that happens? you must file a report. I'm not saying report it immediately, of course then your life will be in danger, but you'll have to let at least your HR or somebody know what is happening at the company for it. If it happens once, it can happen again. And I promise you, it gets more and more violent on it. The fees must fall movement. A lot of things broke. A lot of people were arrested. Now you're saying, okay, but to release those people because their actions was justified because it was for a good reason. Now I'm not here to argue whether or not it was for a good reason. My problem is, it's our money, guys, who actually now has to fix everything that was broken on that. Now you're telling me, so you can now come, you can break this chair. You can say, no, it was your right because there was a needle in the chair and it hurt me. The thing is, it doesn't add up because at the end of the day, it's not justifiable. It's not justifiable. There's a right way and a wrong way to do it. Protesting, great. I love protesting, but do it peacefully. The moment that you are now going to ask, let me be excused. So you want now a presidential pardon? You want the police to release you? Drop all charges. Why? Because you broke everything. What now changes if a person outside damages your car? And do you want him now to be excused? Of course not. Law must be applied equally. It's exactly the same in the Constitution. Everybody must be treated equally. The consequences of using violence during a protest. That you will find in our booklets. We describe it for you. We tell you what can happen to you. Nothing there is going to put a smile on your face, I promise you that. Please let your learners read that as well. Defamation. An unlawful publication of a statement made by a person about another person where another person hears or reads the statement. What does that mean? Tell me, what does that mean for you?
What's the question?
What do you think defamation is?
Yeah. So when somebody
But
drags my mighty name in the mud.
Exactly. And how can you do that? You can do it on Facebook, you can do it on newspapers. So, what does the media do? They love it to take a story and say, yes, the amount of viewers that I'm going to get if I write this article about this specific person, it's going to go insane. I'm going to be the best article, what do I call it? I'm going to be the best writer ever.
Yes.
For it. Now, if that story is not true, what do you think happens? You can put in a claim for defamation against this person because where are the facts? Did you now just make it up? So now I can make up anything about any of you guys and I can say, yes, but this is what happened. And if you find out about it, remember, I didn't keep it for myself. I published it or I went to you and I told you, this is what he did. So, now I've already told somebody. You're now going to tell a few other people. But only because I told you now already, your reputation has been damaged. You can put in a civil claim against me if it was not justified, if I had no reason to do it. If it was in the public interest for me to say that. Listen, this guy is now going to come in here with AK-47s and start blowing up the place. Of course it's in the public interest. You must warn people. But if I did that and I was not justified, you can sue me for a lot of money for that. Okay.
Just then, let us not move on that one. I think it's very important, that one, yeah. Especially for us as managers. Maybe we need to bring it down to our level in terms of the steps that one can take, legally, in order to pursue someone who for defamation of character. Yeah. But it happens a lot, With us, it's even worse. Doesn't even have to be on social media.
Yeah.
But for the mere fact that, you know, as principals, we struggle. I don't even want to buy a car because I know what they're going to say. I'd rather keep my old car. Yeah. We know police. Yeah. Then you can't even buy a nice house. You know what they're going to say, right? Yeah. But still, that cannot stop you from living your own life. But they are very, you know, sometimes malicious and serious.
It is true.
Yes, sometimes it can even break your marriage. You know, as a principal, that is why we open our doors even at any time, so that when anyone enters the office, colleagues, if you don't do that, please open the door. Because once ma'am gets in there and then, unfortunately, then they had 10 rough and then they were scratching. So when then when they leave the office and then the hair is not exactly the way you want. Yeah, but such things, how can one, especially some of us, we're still young, it's very dangerous. But but how does one, the legal group,
against something like that?
Yes.
Excellent question. Thank you very much. So, few ways to do it. One, you get your private attorney. I charge you 5,000 rand deposit. I write a letter to the person. Okay. I'm telling them, listen, cease and desist. Letter of the mark. Saying that I'm acting on your behalf. We have received complaints that this and this and this has been happening. And if you continue with your actions, a civil claim will be brought against you. You can get for pain, damages suffered, anything that you can actually justify. Again, remember, a claim must be justified. You can get a lot of money out of them if they do not stop. But you must also in the letter tell them, with immediate effect, you must stop. Now, there are two ways to deliver this letter. Either through the sheriff. I love the sheriff because there's nothing more intimidating than a person showing up at your house, looking at you like this and giving you a letter and then explaining to you this and this and this is going to happen if something does not change. Secondly, it must be done via registered post. Why via registered post? Because then you have the proof that it was sent to them. How does any legal action start? You must first send out the letter of demand before further action is taken, and you can actually then issue summons against the person for defamation. Other thing that you can do is, now, this person, as I understand correctly, sometimes they threaten you as well. That brings me back to the point that I made earlier, protection order. Guys, you're not using enough protection orders. I'm not saying abuse the law system, because it's not there to be abused. But a lot of these things, it's actually, if you feel threatened in any way, it doesn't have to be physical, it can be emotional, it can be verbal. As soon as that happens, get a protection order. If they continue with it, they will be arrested. It's as simple as that. That is my most effective.
Yes. Just one question before we wrap up. Now, most of the times the problem will be with defamation of character. If it's not something that you had directly from the person involved, it's something that you had.
Oh, no, I
you have to have proof, and what kind of proof? If it's not written, somewhere or anywhere, because people can do it deliberately, knowing that it's my word, against it.
The problem is that's hearsay. Hearsay evidence is
unless you break their legs, they say, and then you take them.
That's the problem with it. I would never advise to take action, because remember also now you're making, let's say you're writing a letter to them. You are now making false accusations against that person. How are you going to justify it? You're not going to say, yeah, my buddy from my friend, from my other friend now told him that, and that's how I heard it through the line. It's not going to stand in.
Can you bring them as witnesses?
If
there's people say this was behind closed doors, and then there's people who were there, and they are prepared to testify that you said, this. Can that
My advice to you would be then, do not follow the letter of the mark. Follow the protection order route if it's serious for you. I mean now a life-threatening situation. Follow that, get them as witnesses, because you're going to need them. The magistrate is not just going to say, okay, this is now granted, just because I think I believe you. There must be justifiable reasons for it. Okay, and they must be willing to testify.
But what is important is the evidence, you see. You must gather the evidence.
It's always
because the one that will protect you.
The thing is, I have so many
Make
claims.
use of our cell phones.
See,
It's the evidence.
exactly. Get anything that can actually just prove your point. It's a very good
Are you
point you make.
Are you not breaking the law if you take a picture of them or scanning them without their consent?
There was an
But it's
article
currently
now saying that you can actually report these, you can use them for it. So yes, do that. But the thing is just ensure that they say what you actually are now claiming
Yes,
that they are saying. If you're going to give a lot of the jitter-jatter before the judge, they have big tempers, these guys. They're just going to say, what are you doing in my courtroom?
Yeah.
I'm going to throw you out. So ensure you have one shot at this. Make sure that you use it correct. And again, I cannot put enough emphasis on this. Make sure that it is life-threatening. Judges do not want us to just abuse the justice system. Okay. Okay. Our Constitution says we have the right to freedom of expression. But what happens now when freedom of expression conflicts with another right? Freedom of speech versus defamation impairing the dignity. Basically what we talked about now. So you're saying now on Facebook, my teacher, I know for a fact he's getting bribes to mark, to give better marks to a student than to me. I know this for a fact. This guy now freaks out. He now brings a case against you, a civil claim, saying, how dare you make this? Now we're looking at, is it in the interest of justice? Can you now justify your actions on that? If there are witnesses saying that yes, and here's the proof that it happened, then yes, of course you can do it then. But be very, very careful what you post, especially on Facebook. Penny Sparrow?
Yes.
Anybody know Penny Sparrow?
Yes.
People make strange decisions. Don't even go with fake accounts. The problem is with that. I've heard that. Don't even go with fake accounts. What happens is they can actually trace your IP address.
Yes.
They can trace your IP address. If you make something that is actually so serious that the police now decide they're going to actually trace it, they will find it. They will find it. Okay. The right to freedom of speech is restricted on the basis of what is fair and what is reasonable. Okay. Okay. Now, before I tell you about that, give me examples of bullying. I want one from this side, I want one from this side, and I want one from this side. Let's start with you guys. Cyberbullying. Physical bullying. Verbal bullying. I thought I was going to struggle with you guys, but no, it's fine. Physical bullying. Verbal bullying. Psychological bullying. That's the one that I was going to mention for you guys. Does the victim have to be present to be bullied? That's where you guys come in. Social media, cyberbullying. That is, according to me, one of the worst types of bullying these days. Because now, you get these guys, and it's probably just this small little guy, giving people crap because they can't see him, so they can't now justify themselves, or they cannot now go and beat him up. He's just saying, yes, you're fat, you are ugly. And it usually happens that for a person now who already has a low self-esteem, what's going to happen to that person? If you're going to fall into depression, you're going to commit suicide perhaps. There is a possibility for that.
Yes.
There's articles on that. You're going to be held responsible for that. I promise you, once again, if your IP address can be tracked, and if you actually now motivated that person, the law can take action against you if you are involved in something like that. Be very careful what you do, what you say or something. This is something that you'll have to address with your learners in school. Can a bully be arrested? You're very smart. It's actually, you are very smart, but what is the age? What is the legal age for a bully to be arrested? What do you guys think?
14.
And what happens if the bully is 9?
They can be arrested. They can be checked, but they are not criminally liable to be sent to prison.
Yeah, it comes down to criminal capacity. So let me just show you a definition of criminal capacity. I'm going to come to that activity now. Just remember where we are, otherwise I'm not going to remember, and then we're going to miss half of the slideshow. Criminal capacity. Being of sufficiently sound mind so that one may be found guilty of committing a crime. In other words, knowing that an action is a crime but still choosing to commit the crime. So you're choosing to commit this crime. You have the capacity to know this is wrong, but I'm still going to do it. So, let me just quickly then, while it's still fresh in my mind, I'm going to tell you a story, but it's kind of a gross story, but it's also a very cool story for this. One morning, I received a phone call from a woman. She told me, okay, I must urgently come to the cells, her husband has been arrested. I got there, there was a small, tender-looking woman. She had long black hair. And when I asked her, okay, what exactly happened? She just flicked her hair off, and she was strangled on both sides, blue marks on it. And I told her, okay, what the hell happened? She told me her husband, who now she wants me to get out of prison, was strangling her. And I thought, okay, tell me the story. So, what happened was, usually this guy is very lovable. So, he came home one night, he was lying on the bed, she was in the shower, and when she got out, he suddenly just lost it completely. He started assaulting her, started saying things to her. He wasn't himself, so he wanted to kill her. She ran out of the house. The only thing that she could do was she phoned the police. Police arrested him, put him in the cells. So, went down to the cells. Have you ever been to a prison cell? Yes, it's scary, huh? Yes, it's nothing like on TV, I promise you that. You sit there and you think, okay, I'm going to die here. It's insanely bad in that cells. So I was speaking to this guy, and I saw, okay, the guy wasn't mentally all there. He was twitching, and I thought to myself, okay, the wife also, the story doesn't match. So this guy is a lovable husband. Suddenly, out of no reason, he just starts assaulting her. Went to the prosecutor, I told him, okay, let's send the guy for mental observation. Great, but he stays in the holding cells, of course. We've now been assaulted. Great. A few weeks later, these results come back. Now, what happened was, this guy was a butcher. He was working with meat every day of his life. He wasn't wearing his gloves. He was cutting pork. He had a cut on his finger. While he was working with the pork, a tapeworm entered his thumb, the wound. Now this tapeworm entered his body, went up into his brain. I wouldn't believe it if I was telling you guys, if I wasn't telling you guys this. This is what the doctor's report said. Now, the guy told me in the cells he had blackouts. he had aggressive, but he couldn't remember anything. Now, I'm not going to believe you because every second guy that I defend tells me that. It's a good defense to him. So I said, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. That was actually the case. So now my question is, if we can link it to that, did the guy have criminal capacity to commit a crime there? What do you guys think?
The worm has not the guy.
The worm should have been arrested.
Yes.
The guy was released. Immediately when I showed the prosecutor the report, the guy was released. The sad story about that is, of course, the guy came to visit us again with his wife, very loving again. They also said the worm did so much damage to his brain because it was eating his brain. They said within a few years' time, the guy won't even be able to remember his name anymore. They did give the guy medication to, of course, kill the worm, but the damage has been done. Just for you guys who still wants to meet me. What you can do is, the problem now is, remember, if you work with meat, you must wear gloves. And that's where he was fault. That's where he was at fault. That's the problem with it. So it's going to be very difficult.
On that time, on that day.
Can be. This is a very interesting one. I wish I could show you. Do you think we're going to have internet? No, it's fine. Otherwise, if you can't, it's fine. I'm going to explain to them. Yeah.
Let's speak on the issue of bullying. Now, the parents are coming to school as a man. The parent is coming and complaining that the child is experiencing this so-called social media bullying. As a manager, can you motivate the parent to go in a case?
Okay. I have a few more. Was that a good picture? Otherwise, we'll do it again. I have a few more slides about that as well, so that I can show you. But what I would recommend is you must definitely encourage the parents to do it. Because why? Psychologically, that child will keep that for the rest of his life. Oh, no, okay, perhaps not for the rest of his life, but he will carry it with him. He will immediately have a disadvantage on the other child. So yes, of course. What I would further do is, I would write it in a letter. Why? Because you're covering yourself. That's the first thing to do. Call them in, tell them that this is what you would recommend, that they must open a case. But also, the thing is, but I will discuss it with you guys, but what I want you to know is, children who's being arrested, it's a last resort. It's always the last resort. So what will happen is, the social worker will come and she will draft a report. She will now interview the child. She will say, okay, this is the findings. Perhaps there's some sort of a background on the child that we do not know of. The child is perhaps being bullied at home, being assaulted at home, being sexually assaulted at home. And that is the reasons why they can then make a recommendation. But it's the last thing that a court will do is to actually arrest, or that what the police will do is to actually arrest the child.
Follow up on that one. One working, we once experienced where kids were being bullied through social media. And then I actually inquired from the police if it's possible for them to actually open a case. And the information they actually divulged to me was they can't do it because they do not have the skills to do that. So that's where the other challenge is, to say that we can actually advise parents to proceed further and open a case. But the problem with our system is that they might not actually do anything with that. So I think that's where the problem is.
But remember now, you're now speaking about the police there, but why not open that protection order? I understand the police now, but remember the police only comes in when there's a court order involved. How do you get a court order? You open a protection order. There's no law stating that you cannot get a protection order against the child. it is one of the remedies that we use for. It has been used and it's very effective. So, the process is, you get your interim order, you take it to the police, you show it to them, you say, okay, here's the magistrate's stamp. If this person continues to bully my child, I will phone you and you must arrest them. There are ways also now, if the police does not do their job. Have you heard of the IPID? So, there are ways then to encourage them to do their job if they cannot do their job. Few things that you can do. You can hold a disciplinary hearing for the child at the school. Most of the time, I don't know if you guys agree with me, it doesn't work. What will work is as soon as the law enforcement is involved. But you have to follow the correct procedure to get there. And that is why I'm telling you, yes, you're going to wait, but it is so worth it. Remember, every child, the education that he gets, the amount of knowledge that he can actually take in will depend on the positivity of the child. Is a child going to be positive? He's going to be bullied every day? Of course not. I wouldn't be. So it's worth it. Either you must now tell their parents, either you must now tell their guardians, or even you as a teacher. Anybody who has an interest in the matter can open the case on behalf of the child, and then they can, of course, then get the protection order and just take it to the police. It is possible. Okay.
Thanks for the info.
Can I ask a question? In our modern times now, cell phones are our best friends.
I know.
Yeah, best more than anything else. No? Because there are many cases which were reported by only taking a footage of that incident that you see. There are many successful arrests and convictions made by cell phones footage. Now, I'd like to know that, is it a constitutional right of a learner to come with a cell phone at school?
It's a good question, and it is debatable on that one. Yes, you can record. There's no law prohibiting you from recording. Thing is, what I would suggest is there must be in your school policy, at least you must mention cell phones, but I know that they're not going to keep it. I know they're not going to keep it. I know they're not going to keep the school policy on it, but yes, learners do have the right to keep cell phones with
So
them.
if a school decides in its policy to say cell phones are not allowed, are they infringing the rights of the learners to have the cell phones?
You know why? Because now they can argue, I want to know if there's an emergency at school. That's the first thing that they're going to tell you. I want to know what's happening with my child if something goes wrong. Thirdly, they're going to ask you, but why don't you want the children to have it? Do you have something to hide? I know how these pupils work. So, yes, you can put it in your school policy. Is it going to be effective? No, it's not going to be effective.
Yeah, but still it protects you. Remember, if you have a policy that says, look, you've got to be very creative about it. You can say, yes, they can have cell phones, but during contact time, no child should fiddle or should use their handsets. You understand what I'm saying? Now, that on its own, say there's an incident whereby I clap, another learner over there, and then this one.
There was a video about it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. But this one then, happens to take, to take the video. Yeah. I can dispute it. It's fine, but based on what they see, I'm sure that I can be pursued. But I'm sure that I can counter that by saying that, but it was during contact time, and then learners are not even supposed to, use their, personal handsets during that time. So it protects us, when it comes to that. So yes, they can bring the cell phones. I don't know in other schools. I do that where I work to say that yes, you can have it, but it must be off. You understand? Yeah, and it should not even protrude in any part of your body, including, the headphones there. So once we see it. Once it is visible, we then confiscate it. and then we will then phone the parent to come and do it, and maybe sign, and then we will give it to them. Yeah. So they mustn't be visible.
What you're saying is very wise. The only thing that I do not agree with is if you confiscate. Remember now, so now you're basically taking. You're going to get one of the 15 people. Not even that, you're stealing. You have the intention to take this off. I promise you, we've even...
No, they signed for it, man. We put them in the office there, and then they signed for it. We phone the parent, yes, yeah. It's not done in a very, humiliating way for the child. Yeah. They know, in actual fact, that shouldn't, be
What I would suggest is strict discipline. Exactly what you said now. They cannot even have it on their desks.
Yes.
It must be turned off. It must be there. If it's visible, you tell them immediately, put that away. Do not put it on. The confiscation of the cell phone, I still do not agree with it. If it works, great. But I'm not going to give you the go at it.
In the event whereby there's a theft in the school, you got a principal who confiscated those cell phones, maybe 10 of them, and then there's a backlog. Now, who's going to be responsible for those phones? Who's going to compensate the learners or the parents? So the is the SGB is going to be involved in there, or is the principal alone? Those priorities.
You just pray that they don't steal them. But besides that, now remember.
You cannot work on prayer.
Prayer helps sometimes. But remember, at the same time, one we've got to face the reality. If they carry their cell phones, it's either they're going to be marked on their way to school or home. You understand what I'm saying? They can die about it. And sometimes that conversation between you and the parents, it's very important. It's not about carrying a cell phone at school. Look, there's free Wi-Fi, they can use it to, research. But in my school, we do it, it is permissible to do so if there's an instruction. We send a letter home to say that they'll be doing a social science project, and then they can then, bring their cell phones at school. It needs to be controlled. Yeah. 2, it can be stolen inside the school by other learners. And then, where do I fit in? They know if you come to me and then you say my cell phone is lost, then I say go and ring the police. So you don't even want to get involved. Or it's either you go and to the police and open a case. Yeah. So it's very dicey. It's very dicey.
Again, it comes down to the necessary legislation that needs to be drafted so that all of us can agree and say this, according to section this is how you can keep a cell phone. This is when you can use a cell phone. But currently, there is no legal legislation on that. So that's why I'm telling you, in your school policy, just be very, very careful.
But the thing is, just to manipulate the law. Remember, they are also they are also minors, right? It's fine. I know that we can go to different sections of the Constitution and then they'll be regarded as not being minors, right there. But for the mere fact that they came to school and the people that are responsible to pay their fees or their livelihoods inside the school, it's the parents. You understand? And then the Constitution also gives the parents their rights, to be guardians of those children whilst they are there in the school. So that means that the most important thing is you've got to get a very proactive SGP, and that can persuade parents to understand that these cell phones and everything must just stay at home. And for as long as all of you agree, militate, and then it is signed. 2, including bags. People. I heard when we were talking about hair and all that stuff. So I think that is why our South African education is going down the drain. Children with pens that are going somewhere into their knees, etc. Right? But it's not in schools. If you want to fight against it, there was a case in Pretoria West where boys wanted skinny trousers, and then it was all over the media. But we must know that it must become the responsibility of the parents, to make sure that we keep these things. Where I work now in that area, there's a very bad tendency now. If a child brings, a backpack, a school bag, with Nike or Adidas or anything, they kill them. But parents are the same people that will go and buy. But I think at some stage for this, we've got to make schools to be schools, and kids must remain kids. Yeah. Our Constitution, I personally think there's a lot of loopholes, that make children to have more rights than us. They should remain kids until they are done with school, and then from there they can then become, adults. Yeah. There's a lot of loopholes, and I think we are entertaining it. You understand what I'm saying? Every time a parent comes to the school, and then we've even adopted a very good system in our school. If people come and complain, we protect teachers. You understand? That's the SMT. We don't throw you under the bus.
No.
So we'd rather say sorry to you and then you go. By the time you leave the door and then we point to the middle finger. You understand what I'm saying? That's for you to leave this.
You must let's go back to the issue of cyberbullying. Yes, a child is being bullied, but the perpetrator is unknown. How do we then actually open a project, go for a protection order? Because we don't know who's actually doing this particular thing.
Very difficult. You can ask the help of the police to actually get the IP address, but on that one, I can actually honestly not give you an answer because it's going to be unknown. Perhaps if that person is now threatening the person to kill, something like that, life-threatening, you can say the police was getting these threats, please trace it. But if this person is now just saying, yes, you're fat, something like that, the police can't sometimes.
May I then please link it to the question which I posed previously, to say that you encounter these learners actually do encounter this type of challenges. You then advise the parents to actually open a case from the police. And then the police actually then inform you that there's nothing they can do. We are actually frustration these poor learners. And what is the use to actually saying that a kid is encountering some serious challenges through cyberbullying or by this unknown perpetrator, you tend to open a case and the police aren't doing anything? Is there any process stage we followed?
But I do have an answer for you on that. We have contact numbers that I've also now listed here that's also in our booklets that you confirm specifically for that. Now those focus specifically on child welfare. So if you are not getting any joy from the police, from the courts on it, phone this helpline, see if they can facilitate it. But I promise you guys, there are also social workers there. They dedicate themselves solely for the sake for the children, for the best welfare of the children. I know that a lot of you have actually lost your faith in the law system. And I understand that completely. But I have seen good people in the law, and they are still there, I promise you guys. If we didn't have a passion, I wouldn't even be here today. I would really like to help you guys with it, and I will do everything in my power to provide you with the necessary answers, to provide you with the contact numbers where you can get help if you need it. Okay, it is in the booklets. So booklet 2, Family Law, Marriage Act, the antenuptial contract in or out of community of property. You would be amazed how few people know that if you do not draft an antenuptial contract, you're married in community of property. So they come to me, they want to divorce their wife, they want to divorce their husband, who's sitting at home the whole time. I'm telling them, okay, where's the antenuptial contract? You don't have one. 50% goes to their spouse. And they say, what? How is that possible? Guys, this is what you must tell your children as well. Draft an antenuptial contract if you do not want the person that you're marrying to share to get 50% of whatever you own. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. Okay. The Divorce Act.
That woman mustn't stay in that kind of marriage. I don't know how you're going to negotiate that. Unless maybe, you know these things, maybe sometimes when it's second marriage, and then both of you have got your own kids, somewhere, and then you've got your own assets, you understand, and then you say, you know what, maybe for the purposes of in an event that one of us dies, you understand, these are not your kids, they are my kids, I came with them, I don't know what might happen, you understand, yeah. But,
my experience, people just run away if they hear that. So, the Divorce Act. There are only two ways, in the law perspective, how you can divorce. That is the irretrievable breakdown of marriage. What does that mean? It means you and your wife cannot live together any longer. You despise each other for it. The mental illness or continuous unconsciousness What does that mean? You cannot chloroform her the whole time and say, yes, she's unconscious the whole time. She's unconscious because she's in a coma or anything like that, and there isn't a good possibility of her waking up. Then it's a valid reason to get a divorce. Maintenance, parental obligations. A lot of people don't know that you have to pay maintenance. You are the biological parent of the child. There are ways explained in the booklet what the process is, what you can get. If you are working, then you must contribute for your child. Access to children. Even if the person is not paying maintenance and the child is living with you, you cannot unreasonably withhold access to the child. If the other guy is now doing drugs, and again, you must justify it, you must be able to prove it, and is a bad influence on the child, by all means. Otherwise, you cannot now, out of spite for your ex, say, well, unfortunately, you cannot see the child. It's not how it works. It is explained in the booklet. Estates, the importance of drafting a will that we went through, how the estate will be divided, how to report a deceased estate. Also a very important one I want you guys to read. Booklet 3, criminal law, where can a person be arrested? What rights do a person have when he is arrested? The Child Justice Act. Child abuse, what rights do a person have when arrested? There it is, the age groups that we mentioned, 10 to 14, assumed to lack criminal capacity, cannot be arrested, but the prosecutor may be proved otherwise. So, if the prosecutor now finds through the social worker that this person did know what she was doing or what he was doing, yes, you can actually criminally charge him. Younger than 10 years may not be arrested, will be referred to the children's court, and the diversion program will now be reported, saying what programs the child must do to better his situation. Between 14 and 18 has criminal capacity, may be arrested, but guys, again remember what I told you, to be arrested is the last resort for a child. Sexual abuse, where a person has sexual relations with another person without his or her consent, such as rape or sexual violation. Rights of children. A child can bring a criminal charge against his or her abuser. A child can bring a civil claim against the abuser. Duties of a teacher. A teacher must place the interests of the child first. A teacher has a duty of care while a child is at school. The teacher must look after the child and act as the child's parents, especially if there is a threat to the safety of the child. Duty to report any knowledge that a teacher may have about a child being sexually abused. There is a duty on each and every one of you if you expect that something is being wrong with a child. And you can, I've seen cases like that. You can immediately see if something is wrong, if a child is being abused, if a child comes with some sort of a broken arm or anything like that and is giving you excuses, I ran into the door, something like that, you can immediately pick it up. Don't just leave it, because you yourself can also be held liable if you do not report it.
Who do you confess in an event like that?
Well, I'm going to show you. Don't worry about that. Every person who has a knowledge of a child being sexually abused has the general duty to report it. A teacher can report a child being sexually abused to the SAPS, contacting the SAPS or a written statement at the nearest SAPS. I would advise, go to the police station, get it in writing, ask for a copy of the written statement. Why? Again, because you're covering yourself in this matter. Can also report to either the school governing body, the Department of Social Development, child protection organizations such as child welfare. It's advisable to report the sexual abuse in writing and keep proof of it, as I just mentioned to you guys. How can child abuse be reported? If there is a suspicion that a child is being abused, it should report it to the police, a designated child protection organization, a social worker at the Department of Social Development. A protection order can also be obtained from the Harassment Act, Domestic Violence Act, to prevent a person from abusing a child. Any person can voluntarily report child abuse. A child can also report child abuse without the assistance of their parents, but it is advisable to approach a trusted adult for guidance. Now, a lot of these children cannot trust their parents on it. Perhaps it's a family member. So, you don't want to talk about the family like that. They're just going to say, okay, perhaps it didn't happen or anything like that. That is where you as teachers must step in. If the child comes to you, he takes you into trust, telling him that this is what happens, do not just brush it off. Assist the child, go with him, open a case. You can open it on his behalf.
Good, yeah, it depends. I've heard in the last week, actually, I've had this kind of experience. But again, I'm saying it's dicey now. Now, it's a child who is being sexually, abused by the stepfather.
Yes.
But then both parents work, in the same workplace,
Okay.
but they've got different off days. Now, when the father is off and then, starts doing that, and then the other days, then the mother is off, etc. But from the child, it's every time the child wanted to say something, the father will make sure that he roams around, the kitchen and everything, then so that the child doesn't talk or he threatens. But now, I felt, when the child came to report, I felt that it was fair to let the mother know because she didn't know, before you can even run to the police, or the social workers. Yeah. So, but I was not wrong. Are you fine? Am I not going to? Yeah, because the mother came, right. And then that is when they took the child for medical examination. Exactly. It was confirmed then, etc.
Yes. Rather let the mother do it, because questions will be asked why the teacher is now coming and not the parents.
Yes.
But the moment that you see, because what can also happen is, so the father then beats the mother as well.
Yes.
He tells her to keep quiet. It's your responsibility then to take action. Yes. He did exactly everything. Any person can voluntarily report child abuse. A child can also report child abuse without the assistance of their parents, but it is advisable to approach a trusted adult and guidance in the assistance. There it is, sir, what I've been looking at. The child line for South Africa and the child welfare for South Africa. This is contained in the booklets. Make use of them. You don't have to write it down, you'll get the booklets. Booklet 4, Labour Law. It explains, we're very, very close to ground, I promise. The rights and responsibilities of employer and employer, the procedure to follow for unfair labour practice, and the procedure to claim for UIF. The Basic Conditions Employment Act, employment contract must comply with the Act. Booklet 5, that is the last slide. Fraud. If you guys hand in a sick leave, this is based on you guys. So, you feel, okay, today you don't want to go to work, I have a sick leave note saying, dated back 5 years from now, saying, okay, now I have diarrhea. I'm not going to go to work. If you are now going to change that to say it was today's date, what do you think is going to happen? Not, thank you, yeah. Have a lot of these people who say, okay, no, perhaps all this. It's fraud, guys. You're going to get arrested for it. There was a court case about it. They found it as fraud. Not only will you be dismissed, it's fraud. Okay. You already know these things. In managing income and expenses, things children must know. Debt counseling, what the procedures are. When are you in debt for it? The last thing, the Consumer Protection Act. Promise it's going to take very, very quick. So you buy a cell phone. The cell phone doesn't work. The company where you bought the cell phone tells you, well, I'm not going to replace the cell phone for you. I think it was, what do they usually say? It's water damage or something like that. What did you guys do? Do you know?
Take it to the Indians and fix it.
You're going to have to pay for that. That's the problem. You always want to pay for your problem. There are ombudsmen, guys. The NCC works specifically with things like this. I've had so much success with it. It's also mentioned in the booklets. You report the complaint to them. Remember, anything you buy, you have 6 months from the date that you've bought it for it. If it breaks in that 6 months, you are now actually guaranteed to either have it replaced or to have it fixed, or you can just return it and say, I don't want this junk anymore. But you at least have to give them a reasonable time for them to try to repair it. If it's still not, then you can say, well, take it back. A lot of people take advantage of that because a lot of our
No, you are told that you haven't taken the insurance.
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If you buy something, you must be under the impression, or they must place you under the impression that it is new, that it is working. The moment something is defective, they should have notified you about that. So you buy a car now. This guy knew the car was leaking well. It can be a second-hand car as well. This guy knew it, but he just kept quiet. He just replaced it with a few elastic tape or something. Now the car starts leaking after 2 or 3 days. It's not like you can say, oh, you don't have any rights. From the date that you bought the car, 6 months afterwards, you still have a right to tell him, fix it on your own costs. Don't go that. Everything is mentioned in our booklets. If you can manage to get out of the traffic. Thank you very much, guys. That's that.
Yes, yeah.